Have you ever wondered, how can I get motivated to write? I'll give you a scenario that could change that whole question around. Imagine that you're not writing at all, that you've never been a writer, that you've never attempted to write, and that you have 5, 20, 50 burning stories that are just floating around in your head, that seem original and exciting, and the characters in them are intriguing to you, and the lands where they take place are imaginary worlds you would love to explore. And then ask that question again and realize that it's a very different situation. If you have stories floating around in your mind, then the question of how to get motivated to write is very different. If you already have stories in mind, then sitting down and writing them is a lot easier. It isn't like you're trying to create something out of nothing. It's a matter of you already have the story, and it's just a matter of working it out on the page. When people are not sure about how to get motivated to write, a lot of the times they aren't quite sure about what to do when they start writing. But if you have a burning story waking you up at night, making you forget that you're commuting to work, then it's very clear to you what you need to do when you sit down to write. The story is there. You just need, the name of the main character. You start by writing that name down and introducing that character on the page and taking it from there. So things become very clear, and you know exactly. It becomes as easy as it is to write a quick email to a friend, or to tell someone you know about how your day is going. So let's take a big step back from writing. Let's talk about the pre-writing exercises that we can do, and we can make it part of our lives to do these exercises, to where we start to have these burning stories floating around in our minds. So these exercises are all about story creation, and when brand new stories are being created, it is independent of the pen, pencil, keyboard. This is not about the act of writing. This can happen while you're taking a walk, or fishing, while you're in the ocean fishing. If we want to populate our imagination with fictional stories, let's ask ourselves, where do stories come from? We end up generating stories for a lot of different reasons, and today I want to talk about the approach of creating a location first before we even create the story. So we've already taken one step back. We've taken a step back from writing to look at story creation. We're going to take another step back. Before we create the stories, let's start off by just creating a location. A fictional location is a catalyst for stories. If we can come up with an intriguing location, the stories are naturally going to follow. They become a lot easier to create and imagine and work out. With a really excellent location, the stories, all of a sudden it becomes so much easier to imagine what kind of things happen there, and what kind of creatures or people live there, and the different achievements and struggles they go through. So the first exercise, think of your favorite story, film, book, and look at it just for the location. Let's look at The Matrix, the first film, Matrix. Now, I like this story because to me it just seems so much like the location is the catalyst for the story. You have what seems like reality, and as it turns out it's an artificial reality and built on the physical reality, and these two worlds, how the characters that go back and forth between these two worlds need to battle to survive. And in the location itself is just a cornucopia for great stories. Anyone who understands that location well would find it easy to come up with different events that could take place there. And there's this kind of magic of anything that you might think is possible happening there just turns into a great story. And a lot of original stories can come out of the concept of that location. If you have a favorite story, book, movie, where it leaves you with the impression that this was a story that was really born out of location, write its title in a comment. Human beings are creating stories all the time, and one thing that leads to us creating stories is location. So wherever you are right now, that location that you're in is generating thousands of stories from day to day. You're continually imagining out different possibilities and scenarios, and it all takes place in your subconscious, and we do it. This takes up a very large percentage of what we think about throughout our lives. What I'd like you to do is to create a location. Brainstorm it, write it out, think about what are the fundamental laws of that location. Is it Earth, except all of a sudden gravity is only 50% as strong as it was before, and suddenly humans have to devise a way to cling to the Earth lest they float out into outer space? And how would the towns and people restructure themselves to be able to survive under those new conditions? I encourage you to make it as fantastical as you can, and you know, the now cliche phrase, think outside of the box, to really get beyond our understanding of what makes for a real location, and really have fun tweaking the rules and thinking in terms of what if, and really trying to look outside of our own realities, and entertain the possibility of well, what if reality took this shape, or what if, and we are very familiar with the rules and condition of our own lives, but for go ahead, imagine like Orwell, imagine living under the tyranny of a totalitarian government, even though Orwell did not live in the situation that he imagined in the book 1984. Go ahead and imagine a reality where except for the main character, the people there are half ghost, half real, and always in a stage of disappearing from and appearing in that reality, and what would happen when sometimes the good people in that reality are fading away, and one of the evil villains is starting to become less a ghost and more real, and able to take more control of that reality. And take your time with it, stay relaxed, realize that what happens most of the time, if all of a sudden you say, okay, I'm going to imagine a brand new kind of location that has never been imagined before, and there's total silence. It doesn't appear for us. That's the way it always happens. You need to enter a creative vacuum, and relax, because over the next few days there will be some ideas that you'll start to be able to work with. Take your time and realize that imagining up new locations, you're not going to automatically get that fully imagined, fully understood original location. It takes time. And if you're feeling the kind of ache of being in a creative vacuum, that is a good feeling. The way, you know, someone who's exercising, they want to feel the strain of pushing the envelope of what they can do. Creatively, you're exercising. When you enter the creative vacuum, realize creatively it is the place where you're going to grow the most as an artist. And even though it can be unpleasant in a sense, because you want to have that original location just appear for you, realize that you just need to put yourself in that vacuum and say, okay, let's work on location creation. We're going to spend time each morning. We'll write a paragraph where we create a whole new location, and cut yourself plenty of slack and learn to enjoy the creative vacuum. Sometimes I surmise, again, I'm just surmising, that some of our great storytellers, our great writers, are people who just ask the question, what if? And stumbled upon this wonderful thing that human minds can do, where if you're, instead of always generating stories from the actual location you're in, start off from an imaginary location and then find themselves in a brand new imaginary territory. Now, as you develop a new location, the stories will start flowing. All of a sudden you're going to find yourself imagining all these different stories, all these different characters, and it will branch out like a fast growing plant that will shoot off branches and roots in every direction. But hold back a little bit and work on the location, because that starting point is a very powerful creative point to be at, because the more that the clear understanding you have of that location, the better quality stories you'll create. I'm sure that you've watched film or read stories that have left you feeling a little bit empty, and I'm surmising again that some of those might have to do the starting point. The fictional location was not as well developed, as clearly conceived as it could have been. So as these stories naturally, like weeds, started to shoot off from it and grow in every direction, they were not as strong. They didn't fill us up as much. The book 1984 is a simple story. It's what makes it such a powerful story is that Orwell had such a deep understanding of that location. He had such a clear idea about what it would feel like to be there, and what were the different conditions that determined what the people who lived there, what their lives would be like, and what they could and couldn't do. And so that story, as simple as this, really a very simple story, is still one of the best stories circulating in popular culture today. Okay, as you can see in the graphic, keep this in mind. Have an image like this in mind when you're thinking about what stage of creation you're in. Now, that right there is location conception, and the thing is, whatever work you do in this stage will have a drastic effect on all the stories that will grow like weeds from that location conception. when you do have a writing session, spend a page worth of brainstorming for just to exercise location, conception, creation, and don't go into writing the stories yet, because get a sense of how you can use this situation to your benefit. How do we imagine brand new locations? Ask yourself, what are you interested in? If you're interested in living in society, you could think of different social scenarios, and that would be your location, and that, most likely that would lead to creating dramas or tales of espionage or that sort of thing. If you're interested in science, then you could, whatever part of science is intriguing to you, that naturally leads to imagining different realities. One of the great laws of creativity is that creativity loves limitation. There may be a great photographer who will just work with a pinhole camera because that limitation leads to all these amazing discoveries. So if when you go to write, impose a limitation on yourself. I am only going to write location, conception, and in that limited arena, see how much you can get from it, and make discoveries and understand your strengths and weaknesses in that mode of creativity. And if you kind of put aside all the other different phases and modes of creativity and only focus on that one, it's really a chance to have a concentrated development. Imagine yourself going to that place, finding that place, just daydream, enjoy creating for yourself an imaginary world that you could go to, and all that you're doing is enjoying that world for what it is, for what it could be, and realize that one of the most powerful effects of location conception is the intrigue. We're creating a location that would simply compel us to want to explore, to find out more about what it is. So often in literature there are the catacombs and vast network of underground caves, and this will show up again and again and again in all kinds of stories. That type of location is very compelling to us. It awakes in us the explorer, the one who wants to go find out, what are in those caves? Why were they there? What treasure is hidden there? What dangers are hidden there? There's one thing that can greatly interfere with this phase of creation, and that is the sense of reality. And this is a critical sense, and this is this is a situation would be like, say you walk out of your home and across the street it looks totally different. If there were houses across the street before, now there's an amusement park. And so your is it real mindset kicks in, and it's a critical mindset where you're like, no, that can't be. Something's wrong. It isn't what is really there. It isn't what it and so what we want to do is we want to just at least some of the time when we're creating new locations, we want to disable that. Instead of saying, of course, tubes from outer space can't reach down and transport people to a world made of ice cream. That could never happen. We want to just turn off that mind. If musicians who improvise can turn off that critical mind so that they can flow with it and correct things as they go along, just shake it off, shake that critical mindset off, and disable it. And I encourage you to think fantastically. I encourage you to think absurdly. I encourage you to conceptualize different realities with a sense of humor instead of a sense of what is could and couldn't happen. It isn't like you can't go back. It isn't like you're going to continue to go back to that phase of creation all the time, as you should be able to. You know, so if you're writing your story and working on it, it should happen all the time, where you return to where it leads to thinking more about what that place is really like, and what the conditions, and also through writing the stories are also a way of getting a more solid feeling for that place and a clearer idea about what exactly it's like. I think that a lot of people who could discover the great joy of creativity are put off by the creative vacuum. They think, oh, I want to create something, but it isn't there. Oh, I have a story, but it's murky, or it doesn't. It's not really have, you know, it doesn't. I haven't come up with any new ideas, that sort of thing. Just relax. If you start doing exercises that put you in a creative vacuum, that's what you need to do first, that to create something new, and that will lead to you assembling some ideas. They may trickle in at first, but if you cooperate with your subconscious, if your subconscious gives you an idea, show your eagerness to work with discovery and write those ideas down, and get them out of your head onto the paper, and these beginning stages will lead time and time again to where a new reality will begin to develop, an imagined location, and it isn't going to be fully created, you know, from day one. It's something that if you spend 10 years writing a book, up until the last day of that 10 years, you will be working on getting a more solid, real feeling sense for that imagined location. Thank you so much for watching my tutorial. I hope that it helps with your story creation. I am like PBS in that I do my best to provide quality content for free, except I'm not asking for money in return, but in return I do ask you to please check out my website, solomation.com, where in the next several years I will be posting the story project I will be working on for following years, called Terrible Immunity. I will be posting it as illustrated, read, the story read and illustrated in webisodes, free for viewing. And all I ask is that you take a little time to check out one or two of the episodes, and that will greatly encourage me to continue to provide as much quality content on how to be a writer, artist. I hope you're right. Oh, also, please hit the like button, leave comment, and subscribe. And I hope your writing goes great, and have a good day.